penetrating. The design would have the tip of the runway 150 meters close to along the beach. So you just imagine how it would look like with all these planes hovering around and then we're relaxing sunbathing somewhere. But our primary challenge actually is our location. Our location, as we have mentioned a while ago, is one of our best assets. And we're saying that our location is being threatened. This is how it looks there. And this is how it looks now. So you have so many boats, so many of these tables on the beach, like what you can imagine in Boracay these days. And then there's so many boats here you keep on complaining about because they're not supposed to be there. They're only allowed to drop off and pick up passengers, divers. But now they're there. So you can imagine swimming in the beach where there's the risk of drinking petrol because you have the boats there. This is then, and this is now. So you practically have all sorts of activities going on in the area, putting up all of these structures, temporary and some permanent. And then you are practically destroying also this area. So what's the point? The paradise of the particular persists. The paradise of Marcel trying to persist. While the paradise in general evolved to something which is not necessarily pleasant. So how do you keep that paradise going on within that particular spot when all the others are moving away, or moving ahead, or moving forward in all sorts of directions, and most of them pleasant ones? This is the paradise of the general. Nice, huh? This is the paradise of the particular. All sorts of construction going on, sprouting almost everywhere, dying of all sorts of things. And this area actually is just a few meters away from this one. So what is the implication here? The guests who no longer enjoy the part of the area here, they flock into this area. So they stay here, they sunbathe here. Because it's free. I mean, that is free. Marcel cannot say, oh, go away, you're not our guest. So, which leads me to a question. How is the paradise spatially configured? Of course, you know that we have that comprehensive land use plan. That should have been the plan of the municipality to say, oh, this is where the resorts will be, this is a new use zone, this is where the boats should moor, this is where, this is a pickup and so on. But then, that becomes a translation into a comprehensive development plan, no? Where you have infrastructure policies in the land use plan, telling you where to put all of your sets of infrastructure. And then you have a comprehensive development plan to look into several sets, like social, economic, environmental management, and so on. But, what is the current state of things? The comprehensive plan, land use plan of Panglao, is still in the Sangguniang Bayan for more than a year now. And when we were there, it was not yet there. And they had it already in draft form, but they could not pass it, thanks to some oppositors who had some vested interests. The rate of construction, meanwhile, the rate of construction along the beach in Panglao and inland has tremendously increased. And the salvage zone provision of the law is continually violated. What do you mean with the salvage zone provision? From the tip of the water during high tide, you have to compute 20 meters away, and that should be the salvage zone, no construction there. You are not supposed to stay there for other purposes as recreation and so on and so forth. Okay? So, there's a legal basis. If you look at the water code of the Philippines, that's Presidential Decree 1067, I think it's not the summer in 1965, it says there that the 20 meters should not have structures of any kind. Which means This is a clear violation. Take a look at that. So, yeah. Another thing, the Pantao Tourism Guidelines extends that. So the national law is saying, from the tip of the water during high tide, up to 20 meters, no construction. The Pantao Island Tourism Guideline says, from the tip of the 20, so you already have 20, right? From the tip of the 20, add it up with 10 meters, and it then becomes mandatory easement. And again, no permanent structure. So, you have a kind of a situation here that you have a law, but the law doesn't get to be implemented. So I have my demolition man. I write regularly, monthly, on a blog I call boholanalysis.com. And in one of my entries in 2009, I had an entry there, demolition man. And who is this demolition man? I am not a fan of him, I tell you. I was never a fan of this guy. But then I was incidentally became a fan, because what did he did in June 2009? He led the demolition of the structures along the beach, who violated the 20-meter salvage law. But then, fast to him, one owner of a resort along Alona Beach secured a temporary restraining order, preventing the demolition of structures from proceeding. And what's the argument? The argument is, according to the law, it should be 3 meters only for urban areas. And it is up to the court to determine if it is urban that we will use or the rural rule that we will use. And then this is a legal question, and the legal question is still there. And then nothing is happening on the discussion. What's my argument? My argument is, much of how the built environment of our world will look like in the next 100 years depends entirely on our engineers, our architects, our planners. And there's something that I saw in the book of Ian Bentley in 1999. He said something like this: in the context of capitalism, where most buildings are produced in speculative markets, and many patrons' objectives are purely financial, my question is, how do you think architects, engineers, and planners should behave? For example, if the capitalist would say, I'd like my resort to be located 5 meters within the southeast zone. As an architect, what would you say? You refuse? He goes to another architect who will agree. So, it's a landscape of competing interests. Look at that. You have the architect here, contractors, there's the government, there's the public, there's the client, there's the investor, there's the leads. And as a professional, to whom do you listen to? That's a question. But the case of Marcel Brunner is different. Why? Because Marcel Brunner is the investor, he is the client, he is the contractor, and he is the architect at the same time. Which means to say, he doesn't have to face up to those kinds of challenges as an architect. Because he's the one saying, I will put it here, I will put it there, and so on. Okay? So, it's all into one. And Marcel Brunner belongs to an architectural school which says that you should have a high regard for local structures, for natural environment, like the ones that we will see in the exhibit, in the Swiss Expedition exhibit here, where you can see buildings that are just practically cut on a stone, and buildings that are actually complying to the form of the natural environment. But for me, I said to myself that, and in my research, for example, that in cases of conflict, behavior standards are actually set. They're set. Like, what's my basics? You have the architect's code of ethics. Section 3.1, for example. He shall strive to improve the environment and the life inhabited within it in a sustainable manner, fully mindful of the effect of his or her work, in the widest interest of all those who may reasonably be expected to use the product of his or her work. The architect should always endeavor to protect the client's interests, but never at the expense of higher public